The U.S. president pressuring allies this Monday night to help police a pivotal oil route as his war on Iran rages on.
We'll protect them, and if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us.
Trump's warning to NATO and how allies, including Canada, are responding. A reality check on Canada's promise to quickly ramp up oil production to help lower prices.
That's not how production works in Canada.
What provincial governments could do instead. Layoffs blamed on AI, why economists are casting doubt on that narrative.
We should be taking a lot of what these tech companies say with salt.
Plus, red, white, and gold, the Canadians who won big on Hollywood's biggest night.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. president is not getting the help he is seeking from America's allies to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. That vital shipping route has been largely blocked by Iran after the U.S. and Israel launched their assault last month. That has sent oil and gas prices soaring. President Trump has been berating and threatening NATO allies, urging them to send warships to the region to help protect oil tankers. The response has been less than enthusiastic. As Germany's defense minister put it, this is not our war. We have not started it. Candice Cole has our top story tonight.
We strongly encourage the other nations to get involved.
As the U.S. and Israel's war on Iran enters its 17th day, U.S. President Donald Trump is now demanding America's allies send warships to the region to help open the Strait of Hormuz.
It is quite evident that the U.S. and Israel thought it might be a very short war. They have miscalculated the reaction of Iran, which obviously has prepared for that day for more than 40 years.
In an interview with the Financial Times, Trump said it would be, quote, very bad for the future of NATO if U.S. allies refused to step in to secure the strait, pulling them further into a conflict they didn't sign off on. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has already said the UK, America's close ally, will not be drawn into the wider war, but
ultimately, we have to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That won't be, and it's never been envisaged to be, a NATO mission. That'll have to be an alliance of partners.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz echoing Starmer. He says while Germany wants to see an end to Iran's nuclear program, they will, quote, not take part in this war. And in Canada, Ottawa's defense minister also non-committal.
We're leaving the door open to be, I think, of assistance to any neighboring states that might require such assistance. But we will not be engaging offensively in this war.
Iran has said they consider the Strait of Hormuz responsible for transporting a fifth of the world's oil supply to be open, except to the U.S. and its allies. Experts say even if more countries were to join in the United States' efforts, clearing the way in the strait would take some time.
Generally a 4-week campaign to remove the missiles, drones, fast attack craft and mines in that vicinity, the Strait of Hormuz and the transit scheme.
President Trump said earlier today that, quote, numerous countries are on the way to assist the U.S. in the Strait of Hormuz. He did not name them, but said State Secretary Marco Rubio would be announcing them in the near future. Donna?
Okay, Candice Cole in Washington, thanks. Israel is continuing fierce bombing of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, as well as targets in southern Lebanon, saying it's targeting Hezbollah, which has been firing missiles at Israel. And Israel's military is now sending in ground troops in what it calls limited and targeted operations. Lebanon's government says more than 1 million people have now been displaced by the bombings. Today, President Trump was asked if he supports an Israeli ground invasion.
Does the United States support a potential Israeli invasion of Lebanon?
Yeah, no, I did. And I know look, Hezbollah is a problem. It's been a problem for a long time.
The leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the UK say they are gravely concerned. They put out a joint statement saying they condemn Hezbollah's attacks and call for immediate de-escalation. A significant Israeli ground offensive would have devastating humanitarian consequences and could lead to a protracted conflict, they say. It must be averted. The humanitarian situation in Lebanon, including ongoing mass displacement, is already deeply alarming. Prime Minister Mark Carney had some high-profile meetings in London today, first with the British Prime Minister.
Now, of course, the number of issues is multiplied, so we'll have some discussions on those, and I very much look forward to that.
They didn't take questions, but in a statement, Carney's office said the two condemned Iran's missile and drone attacks and the toll the war is taking on civilians and on energy prices.
Great to see you. Thank you for making the time.
And after that, it was off to Buckingham Palace for a meeting with King Charles, Mark Carney's third since taking office last year. Carney, who turned 61 today, is now taking a few days of vacation before heading back to Ottawa. The volatile price of oil dipped slightly today, settling at just over $90 US a barrel. But the worries about oil are far from over. Canada has promised to increase production of oil to help stabilize the world's supply. Though, as Heather Yourex-West explains, that production increase was already scheduled to happen and isn't likely to help push down gas prices.
In the West, pump prices have pushed past $2 per liter.
Well, it is what it is, you know. Can't do much about it.
The price for Quebecers is not far behind.
Yeah, of course, it's a big impact for us as as a worker here in Canada. I feel so bad about it.
With the world's oil supply down 20%, International Energy Agency member countries have agreed to release some stockpiled reserves. And while Canada says it's stepping up as well, its 23.6 billion barrel promise is not a part of any emergency supply.
We don't have a strategic oil stockpile in Canada. We are the only G7 country without one. So I think it's another illusion for Mark Carney to pretend that he's releasing stockpiles that he does not have.
Instead, the federal government is relying on an expected increase in production out of the Alberta oil sands. Another 140,000 barrels a day starting next month, though this industry expert has his doubts.
That's not how production works in Canada. Oil sands projects ramp up over time. They have turnarounds in the spring that brings down volumes. The 140,000 is a bigger number than I've heard is even possible for this year. And it's certainly not going to happen on April 1st.
One thing governments can do to relieve the pain at the pump is to cut fuel taxes, something the Alberta government says it will do if oil prices remain high.
When oil's at those prices, our royalties increase, the government can more afford to provide that affordability, and it's when fuel is higher for Albertans.
The province is not positioned to cash in on resource royalties are less likely to cut into their own bottom lines, leaving consumers to bear the brunt of what could be some tough weeks ahead. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
There was some positive news for Canada's economy today, but it comes with a catch. New numbers from Statistics Canada show inflation cooling in this country, with some small improvements to food prices. The data, though, was compiled before the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. And as Jillian Piper reports, that conflict is setting the stage for more economic uncertainty.
The latest inflation numbers may be the last positive economic news Canada sees for a while.
Home prices have been fading, and there's been a lot less pressure in the rental market. That's beginning to show up in the inflation numbers.
Inflation cooled to 1.8% last month. Even stubborn food price growth slowed by 0.7% in February, after a more than 30% spike in grocery store prices over the past 5 years. Relief that will likely be short-lived.
It seems like we can't catch a break for long. Just as housing costs are moderating and even coming down, food looks like it might be past the worst. Well, now we get hit with a big run-up in gasoline inflation.
That expected run-up not captured in this data, as the war in Iran is pushing oil and commodity prices higher.
We're already seeing higher gasoline prices. So that pain is definitely going to be felt, if it hasn't already, by households pretty much around the country.
Cheaper gas over the past 3 years, a strong driver behind bringing inflation down to the Bank of Canada's key target. But any long-term supply shocks could reignite concerns.
When you raise the price of oil, you're raising effectively the cost of doing a whole lot of business. Anything that needs to be transported, anything that requires oil as an input, all those costs start to slowly rise.
The increased volatility comes as Canada is still being hammered by U.S. tariffs, which contributed to the country losing 84,000 jobs last month, one of the worst hits to the labor market outside of the pandemic.
The uncertainty associated with market access has, to a certain extent, impacted business decisions to invest and hire, which dampens demand.
The Bank of Canada will be forced to weigh a weaker economy against inflation risks from the Iran war when they deliver the next interest rate decision on Wednesday, Donna, with economists expecting the central bank to hold its current rate of 2.25%.
Jillian Piper, thank you. Tumbler Ridge, BC is one of the finalists in the 2026 Hockeyville contest, and as a finalist, it will get $50,000 for arena upgrades and $10,000 worth of new hockey equipment. In March, a shooter killed 8 people in Tumbler Ridge before taking her own life. Most of the victims were children, including 13-year-old Ezekiel Schofield, who played for the Tumbler Ridge Raptors. Another player, 13-year-old Maya Gabala, remains in hospital. The winner of the Hockeyville contest will be announced next month, and that community will get $250,000 and the chance to host a preseason NHL game. There is some nasty weather in parts of BC. Much of the province is under yellow weather warnings for either snow or rain. An atmospheric river is bringing torrential rainfall and rapid snowmelt, leading to a significant risk of flooding and avalanches. Some areas could get up to 400 millimeters of rain, and some regions can expect up to 100 straight hours of rainfall this week. A mix of heavy snow, freezing rain, and strong winds is bearing down on northeastern Ontario and eastern Quebec, putting those regions under winter weather warnings. The storm has shut down highways, closed schools, and caused power outages. The Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie regions have already seen about 50 centimeters of snow. The storm system is expected to ease in most communities by tomorrow morning. Severe weather is also affecting more than 100 million people across the U.S. The Midwest is digging out from blizzard conditions. Parts of Michigan and Wisconsin got up to 60 centimeters of snow today. Thousands of flights have been grounded along the East Coast because of dangerously strong winds. It is a different story in the Southwest, where a heat dome is pushing temperatures well above 30 degrees Celsius. A tech titan is reportedly shrinking its workforce. Coming up, why Meta could be making cuts. The entire country of Cuba is without power today after the national power grid collapsed, leaving 11 million Cubans without electricity. Another blow in Cuba's deepening energy crisis caused by the U.S. oil blockade. Cuba's energy minister says the electrical grid suffered a complete disconnection, which is under investigation. There have been other blackouts in recent weeks, but this is the most widespread. Cuba hasn't received oil shipments in 3 months after the U.S. cut off its vital oil supply from Venezuela. Today, Donald Trump said, "I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. I think I can do anything I want with it. They're a very weakened nation." Widespread layoffs could be looming at a major tech company. Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, is reportedly planning to slash up to 20% of its workforce as it tries to offset its growing spending on artificial intelligence. Touria Izri looks at how AI is changing the landscape in an increasingly competitive job market.
I'm excited to build this future, and we've got a lot more to come soon.
A future that could include a smaller workforce.
We're certainly seeing a lot of the tech companies, especially announcing layoffs that they're linking to AI.
According to the news outlet Reuters, Meta could shed as much as 20% of its staff. The company calls the report speculative, but it's fueling concerns AI is increasingly replacing well-paying jobs. Amazon slashed 16,000 positions in January. Financial firm Block cut 40% of its workforce last month. And Australian software company Atlassian let go of 1,600 employees just last week.
6 in 10 Canadians say they're very or extremely angry with this.
University of Toronto researcher Scott Sheeman studies attitudes on the Canadian economy. His research shows growing anxiety and anger.
Is there any kind of social contract anymore? or are we just, at the whim of like a few powerful elites and the robots?
But some question whether AI is being used as a scapegoat to downsize.
Some of these largest AI companies have incentive to tell the story that their technology is so amazing as to be impacting the labor market right now.
It's very unpredictable, really.
It's especially difficult for Gen Z, trying to break into a tight and rapidly changing job market. Last week, youth unemployment ticked up to 14%. Zayan Sheikh is a fourth-year computer science student at UBC.
As long as you can kind of learn to use AI as a tool, I think you're in a better place than someone who doesn't know how to use AI.
Finding optimism and new skills in one of the toughest labor markets in decades. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
Space sovereignty ahead, how Canada is trying to get its satellites into orbit on its own. The federal government is ramping up spending on space-related projects. $200 million is going towards a spaceport on Canada's east coast. Canada has no sovereign launch capability, and to do things like deploy a satellite, it must rely on other countries, largely the United States. As David Aiken explains, this new investment will come at a cost for other Canadian space programs.
Canada needs its own space capability.
For Defence Minister David McGuinty, it's all about Canadian sovereignty, about eliminating the need for the Americans or the Europeans to take Canadian payloads into space.
20% of the Canadian economy every day relies on one shape or form on access to satellite connectivity. We want to make sure that we protect Canada's security and sovereignty.
So, the government is providing $200 million to a company called Maritime Launch Services to finish building a spaceport at Canso, Nova Scotia, right near the causeway that connects Cape Breton to the mainland. Ottawa has also set aside $105 million in grants for the private sector to develop a Canadian launch vehicle, the spaceship that will eventually use the Canso spaceport.
Space is strategically vital to modern defense and represents a major economic opportunity for Canada.
But even as Ottawa spends to develop a spaceport, it is cutting back other space programs. For example, last week, Ottawa quietly terminated the Canadian Space Agency's Lunar Rover program, as the agency is set to lose more than 30% or $400 million of its budget, all part of a government-wide exercise to cut costs. The defense minister was unapologetic about the shift in spending priorities.
We want to see defense investments occur in a way that keep us secure and sovereign.
And that has been Mark Carney's overarching theme for his first year in office, establishing economic sovereignty, defense sovereignty, and funding those initiatives that contribute to those two objectives while trimming budgets to those programs that do not. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Ottawa. Thank you, David. Next, the Canadian filmmaking talent bringing home Oscars.
Мне же поручили это все снимать. Я для них, получается, пропагандист. Я люблю свою работу, но не хочу становиться пешкой режима.
That is a clip from Mr. Nobody Against Putin, which won Best Documentary at this year's Oscars. It was the job of Pavel Telenkin, a school videographer, to document how Russian school children are being taught state-mandated propaganda, including about the war in Ukraine. He risked his life smuggling the footage out of Russia and then fled himself in 2024. With the help of an American co-director, he made it into a documentary that has a message for America. There were other big winners, including One Battle After Another, which took home 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It was also a banner night for Canadians in the film industry, who won 4 Oscars for their contributions to some of last year's most visually striking movies. Heidi Petrachik highlights some of their achievements.
The night Hollywood crowned its best, Canada once again joined Oscar royalty. There were Canadian winners in 4 categories, starting with a Montreal duo awarded Best Animated Short for their National Film Board-funded stop-motion animation, The Girl Who Cried Pearls.
I witnessed something extraordinary.
Their second Oscar nomination and the 12th Golden Statue for an NFB production.
What we managed to pull out of our small little community is the most meaningful thing to us.
Then came a big win for the Toronto native behind K-pop Demon Hunters.
I'm done hiding.
The animated feature is a global phenomenon. Director Maggie Kang describing it as a love letter to Korean culture.
Don't disappoint the K-pop fans because they will come after you.
Kang, now winner of an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. The Ontario school where she learned her craft, Sheridan College, adding her name to its list of award-winning alumni.
This was a very authentically told story from the perspective of Korean culture.
What manner of devil made him?
Turns out Canadians had a hand executing Guillermo del Toro's vision for his Frankenstein.
Guillermo del Toro is a big Canada stan, so people don't know that. He chooses to make his films in Canada whenever possible.
2 Canadians on the team winning Best Makeup and Hairstyling for actor Jacob Elordi's amazing transformation into the monster. And 2 others taking home Oscars for Best Production Design for the movie's incredible sets, including this giant ship built in a Toronto parking lot. These winners are now part of a long line of Canadian talent playing starring roles in Hollywood cinema. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
So good to see. That is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Surrey, BC. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.